I scoured Amazon for the perfect shower curtain. I want to make sure I leave enough hanging over. I'm going to give the table a quick coat of paint and sew them all the way around. Thread a piece of twine through the pocket I created. It's time to put the new cover on the table. I'm absolutely loving this custom tablecloth.
Start by sanding your table. Begin painting. Grab some sandpaper and sand to distress. Roughly cut the fabric to size. Grab some hard coat Mod Podge. Apply your fabric to the top of the table, trimming it. Add your Mod Podge on top. Repeat this process on any other part of the table, and now it's a fun, whimsical focal point to my space.
You're gonna need 4 of these canvases, and we're gonna turn them upside down, run a line of glue, then we're just gonna push these 2 together here, put a staple across the gap to take off the clamps, gently flip this over, and I'm just gonna add a few staples, place it over the canvas, and just cut straight up. Okay, now we're ready to attach it and put in a staple. We have this beautiful piece of art.
I found this fun shower curtain. I'm going to start by painting the table. Use a utility knife and run it along the edge. I want to seal the paint to protect it. Put a layer of Mod Podge all over the glass, and now I'm going to lay the shower curtain onto it. I want to trim off the excess, add 1 more layer of Mod Podge over the top for added protection. This little table is so cute now, perfect for sunny days on the balcony.
You're going to start with a pillow insert, get a shower curtain. So I'm gonna make mine 15 inches. For the back side of the pillow, we're gonna create a pocket. What we're gonna do is we're gonna cut this fold in half. I'm gonna fold it about 1/2 inch. You're just looking to create like a really clean edge. You can use glue instead. So that side is finished. You want the presentation sides to be facing each other. And then the other part where we stitched, they're gonna basically overlap. Wrap it around a couple times, hold at the base, flip it right side out, and I'm gonna wrap around the back. I'm gonna attach it to this double side seam that we created, wrap it around the buttons, and you have a new waterproof pillow to put outside.
Clear your space and hang up a shower curtain. Set up your equipment, add some lounge chairs, and when it gets dark, enjoy a snack while watching a movie. I cut 4 rectangles of fabric. I hot glued the edges and folded underneath to create a seam. I set them on my table, and the great thing is they're waterproof. I hung 2 command hooks up on each corner using 2 tension rods. I placed 1 curtain on each of them. I placed the tension rods onto the hooks, and we had curtains. I found a shower curtain at a thrift store. I placed my pillow on top of the shower curtain. I hot glued 3 of the 4 sides together. I measured adhesive hook and lip fasteners on the last opening. Now I can open and close the pillowcase to take it off and clean it when it needs it. I cut out both pockets, and these will become pen and pencil holders. I cut off the bottom of the 2 legs. I hot glued the pocket on 3 sides. You could add colored pencils and an art pad. If you're using the insert, I placed it on my shower curtain and cut around it. I placed the shower curtain section inside my frame. I hung it up as wall art, and it doubles as a message board.
couple of simple mandala patterns. I'm going to slip it under the glass, pattern side up. I found this set of puffy paint. I'm going to start filling in the pattern. I want to start with the piece of the pattern that are separate from each other. It's time to fill in the remaining sections. Next up is to finish the swirls. I'm going to give the frame a quick coat of the same turquoise paint. The final thing I need to do to the picture pattern is outline the swirls again. I'm just going to add some clear glue to all of the untouched glass. I love how pretty these paints look in the sunlight. So I'm going to start with about 1/3 cup of baking soda, 2 teaspoons of water, and I'm also going to need a teaspoon of glue, a little bit of paint to start. I want this to be nice and thick and chunky. I'm going to start with just a little bit of a burgundy colored paint. I am going to reuse an old canvas and I'm just going to cover this up to make really chunky petals, working towards that center. So I'm just going to make some small petals, dab this all over the middle of my flower here. This beautiful piece of art was so fun to make with homemade 3D paint.
Taking this canvas and starting off with just some white paint. Acrylic, and just put this on here. Now again, you could use whatever acrylic you happen to have handy. Very lightly paint all over my surface. Moving the paint around in a very random manner. You don't need to worry, you could use whatever colours you like. Now I'm taking some just basic acrylic paint, a polymer. It's a low viscosity polymer, which I'm adding to my paint to thin it. Some white. White is my first colour of choice. A little blob of green on top of there. Again, I'll pop that on top there. Again, you can see I'm just literally just blobbing these down. Take my balloon and I'm going to smoosh it down as hard as I can. And I'm going to lift it up like this. So look at that. We've got these gorgeous colours on here. And just see what happens with those. Do something similar. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? I'm going to smoosh it all the way down. I'm actually going to do a little second one just there. Smoosh. It doesn't matter if it switches around a little bit. I've really enjoyed making this for you today.
I found this storage box at the thrift store. To start, I'm going to use some black paint to help cover up that pattern. When painting fabric, I always find it best to water it down a little bit. And now I want to add the brown paint. Thinned it out with a little bit of water as well. And I'm going to use a chip brush to apply it, as it will look more natural with a little bit peeking through the brown. The final step to making my faux leather look real is to cover the paint with wax. The wax gives the paint a really nice supple feel that mimics real leather. I'm thrilled with how good this storage box looks now.
I have some clear plastic Christmas ornaments stuck on some wooden skewers and popped into an old piece of styrofoam. I'm using some Krylon sea glass spray paint, and I have some nautical netting, and I'm going to put it around the ornaments. I'm just using a little hot glue to secure it at the top. I'm just going to let the glue set, and then I'm going to trim off the tops. To finish off our faux nautical floats, I'm using some jute. Look at them. They look like real glass, don't they? I love this project. They're so cute.
Saw some candles from Pottery Barn. I thought it'd be fun to try making them myself. I'm going to put a little glue into a small container and then add a bit of paint. Now that I have the glue tinted, I'm going to paint it all over the glass dish on the outside. I'm going to leave these for a few hours before moving on. Using some Mod Podge, I'm going to paint it around the dishes. I can sprinkle the white glitter all over it, and then when it dries, the glitter will stay in place. I grabbed these pillar candles from the dollar store, and I'm going to melt them down. I'm just going to use a couple of skewers to hold the wicks in place. I want to add some essential oil to give my candles a beautiful scent. It's time to fill the glass dishes. The final thing to do is to remove the skewers and then trim the wicks. How pretty are these Pottery Barn inspired candles? They even smell as good as they look. To get the table ready, I'm going to start by giving it a quick clean. Next, I want to give it a light sanding. I want to wipe it again. I like to start with the pedestal first and then do the top. I'm going to add and combine some water with some white paint. To apply the wash, I'm going to use this chip brush because the bristles are natural and uneven. To soften up those lines a little bit, I can wipe them with just a damp paper towel. I absolutely love how pretty this table is now and how much the lighter color changes its look.
Grab a pre-made round tabletop and set a planter on top. Grab some Jenga pieces, glue these down to keep our tabletop from sliding around. Grab some wood stain and put it all over. Now it's some clear polyurethane. Next, it's time for 2-part epoxy and your favorite colors that you want to mix. Rub it all over the board. Next, grab your hair dryer and we're going to use low heat. Just keep doing this back and forth. Now, once it dries for 24 hours, we're going to do the same process again. Now it's time to make our table. Take that base and you can use it for storage for blankets in the living room. Go ahead and put your tabletop on and look at that. I hope you love this project. It's so easy to do.
Drawn a line straight down the middle of the drawers, and I'm going to use a red and a blue paint. When the first colour has dried, I then take the other colour and paint on top of it. Then take your spray bottle and spritz over the wet paint, and then set a timer for 3 minutes. When the time is up, we have to start removing the water now, and I use a toilet roll. Now I'm moving on to the top of the dresser, and I've split the top in half. Now all my drawers are done and dry, and I'm taking a stencil and some modelling paste and applying it to the stencil. I finished off the dresser by doing the stencil again on the top, and here it is. I hope you enjoyed this and you're inspired to have a go at this crazy technique.
I found this lamp at the thrift store. I want to tape off the end of the cord that's nearest the lamp. Just give them a light sanding. I've chosen a beautiful neutral brown. I'm going to go to work on the base and post. I want to cover the dark paint now with this lighter cream color. It's time to create that faux grass cloth look on the shade. I want to do this to the entire shade, highlight all of those beautiful lines. I can't believe this is the same thrift store lamp.
Let's apply some cute flower decals to this plain glass pitcher. I used a weeder tool to remove the excess vinyl and then placed some transfer tape on top of it. I smoothed the transfer tape down with a scraper tool. I placed the design with the transfer tape down onto the pitcher, repeated this process over and over again until the glass pitcher was filled with pretty flowers and greenery.
First, we're going to repurpose a 1-gallon glass pickle jar. And then we have some decorative nautical rope. I'm measuring out vertical strips. I'm going to end up cutting 8 of these. I'm going to start using my glue gun to attach them on the side of the jar. And all I'm doing is I'm evenly spacing these out, and then I'll do that, continue on until all 8 are glued on. We're going to measure around the jar. We're going to need 2 long strips there and then glue 1 around the bottom. Put in some sand from the dollar store and a flameless LED candle. I hope you enjoyed seeing this one come together.
We're
gonna start by using a hot glue gun to glue these forms together. After we have them all glued, I got a piece of cardboard, traced one of the circles, and I'm gonna cut just inside the line that I drew. And you're gonna get your hot glue again. You'll just wanna decide what color you're gonna wanna paint your form. And again, you could leave this just as is if you like something a little more simple. I like simple sometimes, but today I'm just gonna take it up a couple notches with some color, and I'm just gonna draw some shapes on here. So what I'm doing is putting a filler piece in the bottom and just popping that guy right on top. And we have our DIY flower pots all set up in my daughter's room. I think they turned out super cute and they match her room so well.
Using an X-Acto knife, I just cut off the top portion. Next, I'm going to take some craft paper. I'm scrunching it up. Then I'm also going to use extra masking tape. So I'm just going to wrap the whole thing in this craft paper and just cut out my handle. So I'm just going to rip the envelopes up into tiny little pieces and stick them into my blender. We're going to be using some Mod Podge, and I just spread it around onto my plastic container. And this is my finished vase here.
So I'm going to start this project with a empty marinara jar and putting the food coloring into the Mod Podge. I'm essentially mixing it all together to turn it into kind of a murky brownish green color. I'm getting out a cookie sheet and some newspaper. I'm pouring the mixture, the Mod Podge mixture, into the jar, and I'm spinning the jar, let the excess drain out. We're going to take all of our bottles and we're going to bake these. And as you can see, each of them kind of has a different tint. It's beginner friendly, faux vintage decor on a budget.
On one of my most recent trips to Dollar Tree, I came across these glass bowls, and as well I spotted these cool margarita glasses. I'm going to take some E6000 and I'm going to spread it around on the bottom of the margarita glass. And then I'm also going to apply some E6000 on the bottom of one of the glass bowls. Then I'm going to place it on top. I'm going to leave this to set. In the meantime, I'm going to take my second glass bowl and I'm going to take some E6000 and I'm going to take an old drawer pull and then place that on top. And then I'm going to let this set as well for 24 hours. So this DIY is super easy. Honestly, anyone can do this.
I have the storage container, giving the container a quick sanding. I always dust my molds with cornstarch. I'm just going to keep adding clay, remove the excess clay, release the clay, and I'm going to lay them all out. I'm using some tacky glue to stick them in place. It's time to paint them. Give the container a beautiful faux stone look. I think this box and the texture are so fun.
Go to your local dollar store and grab a few glass candle holders. Take off any stickers that are on these jars, and go and wash the jars. Take your lids outside and spray paint them. Let these dry and move on to the glass candle holders. Mix up some 5-minute epoxy, dip your knob into it and center it onto the painted lid. Move on to the candle holders, dip it and center it on the jar. Now let's place these in the bathroom. You can really put anything into these that you want to, some Q-tips, smaller hair ties, and also cotton rounds. These apothecary jars will help you organize your bathroom items and look really cool.
This plastic dollar store planter needs a makeover. Now that the paint is quite thick, a quick sanding with a sanding block, I want to cover the entire planter except the bottom. I want to brush on some dark gray paint. I want to add a little white. Finally, I want to seal the planter with a clear coat. It's time to fill my planter with potting soil and add a beautiful plant.
So I've got my vase and I'm dropping little spots onto the vase. So then I'm taking some cling wrap and laying that over the top, and I begin to smush the colours together. Lift the cling wrap and plop it down on another part of the vase. And so I keep going around the whole vase. I haven't added any more paint, and lay it on half of the vase and then very carefully peel it back. And you'll see that you have this really lovely kind of veining effect. And here is my finished vase. Doesn't it look great?
You are going to want to grab one of these plastic bowls. So I'm going to mix up some dark orange paint with a little bit of white. I'm going to add a little bit of baking soda. Now I'm just adding a light coat to the entire outside of the bowl. So I'm going to just grab some flour and I'm going to sprinkle a little bit onto the wet paint. Rub it in a little bit. Cut up some floral foam and put that into the bottom. I'm going to use some succulents that I picked up at Dollar Tree and just stick them in this bowl. I love how this turned out, and it is such an easy painting technique.
You're not going to believe what I do with this vegetable oil. I added ready mix, concrete mix, peat moss, perlite, and water together and mixed well to create a thick concrete mixture. Next, I oiled the inside of a 20-liter bucket using the vegetable oil, and I carefully packed the concrete into the bucket on the bottom and then worked my way up the sides. After it dried for 24 hours, I flipped the bucket upside down to take it out, and I used a small wire brush and remove any loose dirt and dust around the sides and bottom. Brown, antique white, and gray acrylic paint and blended with a bit of water. And now I have a modern pot that looks like a limestone planter for a fraction of the price.
I'm going to grab this trash can, take the top off. Now I'm going to use a really strong adhesive. I'm going to put it all over the back of the stair tread and then wrap it around the trash can. I want to make this look a little bit antique, so I am using a silver rub and buff. And I'm going to put a little on the bottom of the can too. I'm going to put some drainage holes in this and place it in the top of the trash can. And now I can fill the top with soil and plants. This is an inexpensive way to use an old trash can.
I grabbed a corrugated cardboard box and a tin can. I cut the cardboard about 1/4 inch taller than the tin can. I wet a tea towel and pressed it onto the top of the cardboard to make it damp so I could pull the top layer off, and painted the top 1/2 inch and top edge and painted the whole corrugated surface in antique white. I used a sponge to add black and blended it all together using my paintbrush. Spray painted some silver for a metallic touch. I wrapped it around the tin can, hot glued it together, and now I have a knockoff galvanized zinc vase.
You'll need a laundry basket. Start at one end and wrap the rope around the basket, gluing as you go. Continue until you have the entire basket covered with the rope. I'm brushing on a wood stain. Find dead center of your tabletop. Find a picture or design you want for your tabletop. Cut away any extra white paper that doesn't have toner on it. Generously apply and brush the photo transfer medium onto the printed side of the paper. I'm adding some transfer medium to the tabletop as well. Carefully place your design face down, spritz plain water onto the paper, carefully rub the surface in a circular motion. The paper will start to flake off. Continue rubbing and spritzing until all of the paper is gone. Seal and protect your design with a spray clear coat. Add a couple of handles. The side table is perfect for storing away throws you want to keep nearby.
2 blue buckets that I found at Dollar Tree, cutting the handles off, glue them together. I'm stacking my other bowl on top of it. We're going to take our pool noodles and we're going to start cutting them in half, putting enough glue and then holding the pool noodle in place to form the shape. I'm taking caulk, adding it to the indentations between my pool noodles, but I'm just going to be painting this entire thing white. Stone spray paint, and we are going to spray it. And here is the finished product.
Run to Dollar Tree and grab 8 coils of nautical rope. I also pick up 2 of their pumpkin wreath forms. I start by adding some hot glue to the wreath form and begin to tightly wrap the rope around each spoke of the pumpkin. I continue doing this for all of the vertical sections. I do the same for the other pumpkin. Now I'm cutting off the excess rope. Then I use some thin floral wire to attach both wreath forms together. Using more hot glue, I start from the bottom and wrap the now connected edges with my rope. Once I have the entire outside of the now 3-dimensional pumpkin wrapped, I grab some thinner white cotton rope and wrap it around the wonky stem. Next, I place the wrapped pumpkin into a shallow basket. So I clip a few of these and I head back inside. I just tuck my hydrangeas into the gaps in the finished pumpkin to lay in the basket. I hope this inspired you to bring a little bit of fall into your home this week.
I picked up these 3 little wooden crates. So I've mixed up some brown milk paint that you just want to water down. And I want to make sure that I paint all sides and the inside. While my little crates are drying, the paint are these little gourds and pumpkins that I picked up at the dollar store. So I'm just going to take some of this pearl metallic paint and I just want to kind of brush it all over these. I'm just going to put some hot glue on the ends. And I'm just going to slide them together and hold them while they dry. I want to add some of this beautiful ribbon that I found. So I've gone ahead and made a little cut in the end just to make this a little nicer. Attach this down. I'm just going to take my knife, mark off where this would hit the top, and I'm just going to trim it a little bit shorter than where that is. I'm going to put a little bit of the hot glue, just a couple dabs down at the bottom, and that will hold my piece of foam right down there in place. And it's time to start filling those crates with some fall flowers. And don't forget, we have those little gourds and pumpkins that we added the white pearl to. and we can add those in as well. You want to grab some moss to finish this off. These little crates were perfect to turn into a fall centerpiece. It was quick and easy, and I absolutely love how it turned out.
Picked up several of these styrofoam pumpkins from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to pull the stems off. I'm going to take my green paint, I'm going to do just a little veining down the indentations, put our brush in the orange paint and pull it down over that veining. But it's just going to soften those lines. I grabbed a couple of these garden dishes from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to take them out and spray paint them. I am going to start by gluing one pumpkin down to stick one of these little stems back in here. I'm just going to take one of these skewers, cut that and stick it. Go back in with our glue and secure it. And then I'm going to add one more pumpkin to the top. I'm using low temp glue because this styrofoam will melt. I'm adding candy corn to the bottom. We have pumpkin placemats, and everybody gets a little jar full of candy corn. Head to Dollar Tree and pick up some of those styrofoam pumpkins and make some of these for yourself for these holidays.
We're gonna grab 4 pumpkins and we're gonna pull off the little stems. We're gonna take the small one, put it on top, and grab a taper candle. The taper candle is gonna be the guide to make a hole. Then you're gonna take an X-Acto knife and you're going to take out the area that you just drew, and see, it fits perfectly. So put a big blob of glue and put your little pumpkin on top. So we're gonna grab 2 little wooden rings, put that at the bottom, and now they are totally stable. So now we want to take some faux branches and make this really festive. You're gonna grab your hot glue and put a little dot of glue in between the 2 pumpkins and start adding in your pieces of the branches. And these are just some mini pine cones, and we're just gonna hot glue those in a couple areas on our candle holder, and they're ready to display. Look how cute they are. I set up a little table arrangement on my outdoor dining table, and I think it looks super festive.
What we want to do is take our foam pumpkins and we're going to remove these stems. Just push them down until you have them pretty flat. So we've got our 2 plates, our 2 pumpkins, and we're going to use epoxy. So I'm going to put a nice generous portion on the bottom of my plate here, and I'm going to take my pumpkin and just stick it to the bottom of my plate. And then all you need to do is leave it and let that epoxy dry. Now that I've let my 2 sides sit for just a minute so that the epoxy starts to dry, and I want to again put a nice generous portion of the epoxy and mix it up to each side of the pumpkin here. And then I'm going to attach my 2 sides together. So I'm going to start with this beautiful bronze paint. Now I want to take a little bit of gold and I'm going to just lighten this up a bit and give it some highlights. Here you have our beautiful fall pumpkin inspired cake plate.
We're gonna start with 2 bins, some pine cones. I'm gonna go ahead and start by pouring my bleach into one of my bins. Be very careful when pouring your bleach. Start very carefully adding your water. 4 parts water to 1 part bleach. And now I'm going to take my pine cones and you're just going to go ahead and put them all in your bin. And now I'm going to take my empty bin and set it right on top of the pine cones. My gallon water container, and I'm going to set that on top, and my gallon bleach container, and those will weigh the pine cones down so that they are now submerged. Leave those for 24 hours. As your pine cones start to dry, they're going to start opening up. Start with a big piece of this brown paper. Started with a couple of rough cut wood rounds, and I'm going to start tucking these beautiful pine cones. And then I'm going to add some of these dried grasses in some pieces of raffia and tied them in a knot. And then I'm going to mix the knots in. So my table is set and my beautiful bleached pine cone centerpiece is the star of the table. So I'm going to start with these. So I'm going to use these for chargers, some birch logs, this kind of pine cone garland. So I'm going to put that down first. And then I'm going to intertwine it with my birch logs. And I'm just going to work these in to our garlands here. I'm going to tuck some of this down in to give us some more texture. I have a whole bin of bleached pine cones, and I'm going to add several of those. This cute little sign, I'm just going to try and add that right here. These cute little, I think they're supposed to be Christmas ornaments, and I'm just going to tuck those in around. And the next thing I'm going to do is add my dinner plates. I'm just going to use these orange napkins, tie them in a little knot, and just put them right like so. I have a few wood slices around, so I'm just going to tuck them. We're going to add wine glasses. Made little appetizers into little campfires. How cute are those? And I'm just going to set those right on top. I'm going to go ahead and set this. Nice little camping tablescape. Like I said, it's something you could use for lots of different occasions, and you can mix it up a little bit differently. If you're not familiar with these paper runners, they are fabulous. Any paper can do. This actually is an antler that my husband picked up. I'm just going to start with my centerpiece and just tuck these white pumpkins. I'm just going to start tucking these in around our pumpkins. I have some various feathers, and I'm just going to tuck these into. So I'm going to go ahead and set my table. When you put these down, and then I put my dinner plates on them, and I just thought it added another texture. So what I'm going to do with just setting my table for 6 green cloth napkins, and I'm just going to take them like so and pull them right through my napkin ring. I'm going to go ahead and add my flatware, and I will just pop him here at the end of the table. Add my crystal stemware to each place setting, and we will be ready to let people come, get in line, and head to the kitchen to eat.
I'm going to use this free pallet. I'm going to flip this over to the back. I'm going to cut the 3 main support beams right there. And then I need to remove the boards that are in the middle. Next, we're going to measure in between on the backside. I'm going to measure and cut these 2 boards. Now I'm going to take the smaller pallet boards, and those are going to be my fillers. Then I'm going to put the bottom and the top pallet board together. Go ahead and take all your pallet boards, put them in the middle. Then you're going to just take a screw on each side of the support and put it together. I'm going to go ahead and set it right into place. And oh, I was so excited. It fit like a glove. Next step is to go ahead. We're going to put those on, and look at that. Now we got to be able to secure the door. So just a little eye hook right there and put that in. So I'm going to put these eye hooks in, and I'm going to use a chain. Now it's time to secure it to the wall. Be very safe when doing this. But once I got it secure, look at that. But here comes the surprise. You're going to love this. Once it opens, it's your little old pallet bar. Isn't that great? I love it. I can store my drinks inside. I even put a bottle cap opener. Headed down to my local Dollar Tree. I'm going to start with these glass beads. I'm going to also head over and get some rubbing alcohol. Next, I grabbed this bowl. Got it from Home Depot. I'm going to grab some sand. Start putting it in the bottom. So you want to fill it up to where when you get your bowl, you're going to kind of be level with the top. And it has a firm foundation. Let's go ahead and start putting some more sand in so that it holds it in place. To level it out. Make sure that bowl is firm. We don't want any spillage or that thing moving when we light it up. Go ahead and put the metal bowl in, and then remember those glass beads and start placing them all the way around. Take that rubbing alcohol and pour a little bit in there. Give it a little bit of a flame, and it's going to light right up. If you need to put it out, you're just going to put a metal lid on top. It's great for just relaxing nearby. The first part is making sure that the bottom is flat and level. When you're stacking the cinder blocks on top of each other, always make sure you use an all-purpose construction adhesive. It's going to hold the blocks together so there's no slippage or having them fall apart. On a project like this, you're always going to want to make sure you're wearing gloves. You're going to lay and stack 4 of these cinder blocks together. You're going to do this for both sides. Always want to make sure I take my level and just make sure it looks good. Then we're going to take 2 more, turn them the flat way. Use the construction adhesive, lay it down, and put the bricks on. These are going to lay sideways, facing each other. The next thing we're going to do, on the back half of the last cinder block, we're going to put some construction adhesive and lay this cinder block facing up. Now that we've got our cinder blocks in place, you're going to use a total of 7 on each side. The next step is putting the wood in. And here it is, our final project. I think it just turned out great. I literally built this thing for less than $60. I've got this sad area in my backyard that I really want to spruce up. Once I use that level and a board to make sure it's level as possible, I'm going to set out a base of reclaimed bricks that I had. Once I get all the bricks out, I'm going to use sand as a filler. So I'm going to put some sand down, rub it out, and and make sure that it fills in all the cracks. Next, I'm going to start handing out these pavers. What I'm going to do is lay these out and get them all around the edge of the bricks that I laid out. On the next row, we don't want to lay the seams on top of each other. You're going to go ahead and mix it up and put the seams right over the next layer. 3 rows is going to be perfect. Next, we're going to make a top for it. I'm going to lay out some glue because we need to make a brace to hold these together. I'm going to put these across, and then I'm going to use my nail gun just to put some nails in to hold it in place. Once we get our circle all figured out and marked, it's not going to be that hard to cut it out. Once I got it cut it out, let's go ahead and get it sanded down. And I'm going to need some handles, and that makes it great. So when the fire pit's not being used, it's going to be perfect. It's time to go ahead and get the campfire going, and it just makes for a wonderful, great afternoon. Go ahead and grab yourself a tomato cage, and also grab some wood shims. Grab a scrap board, take the thick end. We're going to get a nice clean hole, and we're going to do this to all of our shims. What we're going to do is take a towel and just dip it in there, make sure it's all covered. Just wipe it on there. The sticky points that go into the ground, we don't need those. It's just going to snap right off. Now we're going to grab us some copper wire. We're going to put that through the shim with the hole in it. Just use it like a twist tie. Go all the way around. Once you get the second layer done, we're going to grab us a solar light from Dollar Tree. Take off that small part on the bottom, the stake. We don't need that. And let it float right in the middle. Now we're going to work on that last circle. And when the night starts to fall, watch this. That thing is going to light up, and you don't even have to turn it on or off. It works its magic automatically and recharges during the day.
Start by measuring your space. We're using waterproof crib mattresses, so you'll build your couch around the crib mattress measurements. Cut the pallets using a circular saw. Be sure to watch out for nails. Cut all the way across, then flip over and cut the other side. After you've cut all the pallets, start stacking. We used a total of 12 pallets, cut to fit for our outdoor couch. Use a nail gun to attach painted plywood fronts and trim board. This part's a lot easier if you have a second set of hands. Now that the couch is assembled, you can add the crib mattresses. Ours were shipped covered in plastic, so we left that on to make them extra waterproof. Cover the mattresses with fitted sheets. These are inexpensive and easy to throw in the washing machine. Lastly, decorate with throw pillows and enjoy with your favorite furry friend.
Next time you're at the thrift store, pick yourself up a couple of lampshades. To begin my project, I just took apart the lampshade, so I just began with some scissors, cutting apart the fabric and ripping it off. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put this little knob back on. Then I'm going to go ahead here with a hot glue gun. I'm just going to attach this faux moss onto the wired parts. I came in with these solar fairy lights and wrapped them all around my lampshade. At night, once the solar lights have charged, they light up and they provide just a cool atmosphere for my backyard.
We're going to grab us an old pallet. We need to cut a section of the pallet out. Go ahead and separate it, but don't throw it away. We'll need those boards. Take the section that we cut and we need to find the middle. That is how we're going to get our two ends perfectly aligned. Take that part that we cut off earlier and separate it and remove some of the boards with the nails in them. Just go ahead and grab a hammer and you're just going to start tapping on the back side of the nail. You're going to pull that nail right out. And we're going to place them across the top of the two pieces we cut. Then I used a nail gun just to put it in place. This thing is going to be so strong, it doesn't take much to hold it together. Take a little bit extra, the boards that we have left over, and we're going to build a little bit of a shelf. We're not going to secure it because it's time to show you this final project. This is great for outdoor. It looks rustic and it's great for cooking s'mores and making some hot chocolate, especially with that sliding shelf. Headed down to local Dollar Tree to grab some rope, some clear bottles, and some cool little lights. Just take the hook off the top of the light. Next, we're going to take the bulb off. Next, we need to take the actual light mechanism and pop it out. What we need to do is paint this cover. Now on the bottle, we have a cork here. We can go ahead and just remove that. Next, I grabbed off of Amazon a bottle cutter. Put the bottle on the rollers and you go ahead and start turning it. What you want to do is hear this noise. That means you're cutting right through the bottle, but it won't cut all the way through. I'm going to show you a little cut line on there. Stick the bottle in the boiling water for a good 30 seconds. Once you got it in there and it's heated up, immediately go ahead and put it in the icy cold water. It's going to separate along the score line, and look at that. Perfect. Takes off the bottom and you got a nice flat smooth line. Put the lights back through our painted cover and clip it back on. Take some E6000 glue and place it around the edge. Take some hot glue and put it in the areas I didn't put the E6000 on. That's going to hold the cover in place while the glue is drying. We're going to stick the lights inside the bottle, set the cover on top. Then we're going to take that rope, stick some hot glue on the neck of the bottle, let that hold, and then we're going to start wrapping it all the way around the neck. And then take this extra twine, we're going to put it through the hook. I made 3 of these and we put them up. I hope you guys enjoyed this project. I sure did. And we can't wait to see you again on Home Talk.
I had this very cluttered and boring pantry closet. I cleaned out the closet, removed the shelves. I then grabbed some very colorful 12 by 12 inch vinyl tiles. Once I cut it, I simply peeled off the backing that comes on the tile and exposed the adhesive. I also used some painter's tape just to hold everything together. I used a little piece of painter's tape to mark where the hole was so that it would make it easier for me to reattach the clips later. I put the wire shelving back in place. I will admit, it did make me notice how dingy my wire shelving was. I purchased some sheets of plywood from the hardware store. I cut my plywood to the size of the shelving. I just added the plywood on top of the 1x3, and I used a nail gun to secure it in place. Once I had them all in, they looked great, but I definitely wanted to stain them to make them a little bit of a darker, richer color. The problem, for me, I really wanted it to look a lot lighter and brighter. I cleaned the cabinets thoroughly. I removed the cabinet pulls and then took the doors off of the hinges. This allowed me to paint the cabinets and the cabinet boxes. I painted them white and the process was very quick and easy. Once I applied a few coats and allowed that to dry, I put the cabinets back in place. I wanted to personalize the pulls a bit and I did so using some jute string. After that, it was time for me to work on the dark granite countertop. This project started with cleaning, lightly sanding, and then re-cleaning the counters. Next, I applied white paint from a marbling kit to the countertops. I applied a second coat, which covered a bit more. I applied a third coat as well. I painted on the lines using the gray paint that came in the kit. Then I softened those lines. After I got those looking the way I wanted them to, I added the epoxy on top. I purchased a silver peel and stick online. I wrapped the black dishwasher. Before you spend money on expensive tile, check out this $100 idea. I used shiplap and cut it to size the length of my kitchen wall, and then I painted it using a paint sprayer. I placed my first piece in the kitchen and I made sure to mark where the outlets were. I needed to cut just the little tongue part of the shiplap to make sure that it would not go over the outlet area. I did this using a tool called a multi-tool. It worked well for me and was really quick. I simply placed the shiplap in place and secured it using a nail gun. I continued this way up the wall. It took me 4 pieces of shiplap to get to the top of the backsplash and fit right underneath the cabinet. After that, I put my new appliances in and added little trim pieces to the edges to give my project a finished look. After updating this 1980s kitchen, I knew it needed something more. So I decided to use an adhesive tile mat along with mosaic tile sheets, white grout, and a sponge. The adhesive mat comes on a roll. When it came to the outlets, I made sure the power was off and I simply cut the mat with a razor blade so that I could create an opening around the outlet and disposal switch area. When I was ready to place the tile, I removed the white cover sheet. You can use spacers when installing the tile sheets, but I felt comfortable working without them. The work progressed pretty easily and I was lucky that at the first corner, the tiles ended in just the right spot. When I got to the second corner, I wasn't quite so fortunate. My husband was helping me out at the tile saw while I was doing the installation, and he went ahead and cut right down the tile mosaic sheet for me. When I got to the outlet and light switch area, I was able to press the tile into place just very lightly and then cut away the tile. I added the grout and then went over it with a damp sponge to get the grout residue off of the tile surface. I rinsed and repeated the cleaning with the damp sponge several times.
We started with a completely bare backsplash. Measure the length and height of each panel will need to be cut to. Now mark the panels to the correct size to be cut and cut them with the saw of your choice. I used a jigsaw and a table saw to make the cut. I found it easiest to lay the panels flat on the ground in a line as I cut them to make sure they lined up exactly. Next, you will need to take the panels in and mark where notches may need to be cut in order for the panels to fit under the cabinets. Take a tube of toothpaste and squirt a little on the corners of each outlet. Then slide your panels into place. Then remove them again and the toothpaste will have transferred to the back of the panel, showing where you need to cut the hole for the outlet. Now you're ready to set your panels in place. First, put construction adhesive on the back of the panels and then press them into place. Use a nail gun or panel nails to attach the panels into place. Now it's time for the faux finish. Sporadically paint the bricks various colors. I use white, tan, black, gray, and brown. Then use a wet rag to blend all the colors together. Lastly, spread the spackle on like a thin coat of icing.
So this is grout, like what you would use for towel. It's pre-mixed. Where the border would be on the brick, that's where you're gonna put this stuff with your fingers.
Today's project starts with a few end tables that you can pick up from your local Walmart or IKEA, and they're simple to put together. Put a wheel on the bottom to make this table mobile. Get a nut that will fit on the end of those threads, and we've got to glue it to the bottom of the leg. But we want to make sure we add a washer to give it some strength, because we're going to use a 2-part epoxy. We're going to take the epoxy and put it around the edge of the bolt next to the washer, and on the bottom of our table, turn it on its side, and we've got to glue a piece of strip of wood on the bottom. Go ahead and just put some around the hole on the bottom of the leg, and we're going to take that little invention we did with the washer and the nut and stick it right on there. Make sure it gets nice and secure. That allows us now to screw the wheel into the bottom of the leg. Gotta join these 2 tables together. Once you get it all on there on all 4 corners, go ahead and stick the other table right on top. Once it dries up in about 20 minutes, it's super strong and it's time to paint it. Went ahead and put these 3 boards in for the base, and they sit there really nice. It also gives some strength, but it's time to finish the top. I want to use some contact paper.
I started with a pre-cut pine board that I bought from Lowe's that was about the same size as the stainless steel film that I bought on Amazon. The board was a little bit longer, but I measured and cut off 3 inches. I wanted the stainless steel to wrap around the edges of the board. For the legs, I measured and cut 1x3 and 1x4 inch pine boards to 32 3/4 inches. Using wood glue and brad nails, I completed 4 legs. For the shelves, I cut 1x3 inch pine, making 2 boxes, which I glued and nailed in place. I made 2 of these shelves. I attached the legs to the outside of the bottom shelf. Then I flipped it upside down and attached the top shelf the exact same way. For the bottom shelf, I measured and cut 9 1x4 inch pine and glued and nailed them into place. For the sides of the island, I added 1x3 inch pine cut to form the shape of a V, and I glued and nailed them on each side. For the feet, I cut squares out of 1x3 and then attached casters to those squares. They were glued and nailed in place on the bottom of each leg. I laid the top in place and measured around to make sure that it was an equal distance. Then I nailed it in place. I carefully laid the film on top and smoothed it, pulling the film a little bit at a time and smoothing it into place. For the edges, I bent the film over the sides and stapled them in place. I folded the corners as you would wrap a gift and stapled those in place.
To start, you'll need 3 Parsons end tables, and I purchased mine at Walmart. I put 2 of the tables together. It was really easy. All you had to do was screw in the legs. For the third table, I didn't use the legs, and I drilled the holes just a little bit bigger so I could fit rolling wheels in them. Use some E6000 or glue of your choice and put it on the bottom of the legs on 2 of your tables. Stack your tables on top of the tabletop with the wheels.